Hello, BookTube. Welcome to your Daily Penguin. This is our tour through my Penguin Classic wall, and we don't know what we're going to encounter from day to day. These are the books that have been with me the longest. These are the books that have meant the most to me. I have been a deep and abiding fan of Penguin Classics as long as there have been Penguin Classics, and have kept a lot of them with me through thick and thin, through anything, anywhere that I was going, anything that I was reading. There were so many long stretches in my life where I wasn't acquiring books or wanting to, where I was perfect. It wasn't even going to libraries, where I was just traveling. I was perfectly happy to have the companionship of 16 or 17 authors. Quite a few of them were in Penguins, and even during times where I was acquiring books, I've spent so much time with the equivalent of this wall. This is the first time since starting this channel, this is the first time that I've actually assembled my Penguins into one whole wall of the little book room that I always assemble around myself whenever I come to roost somewhere. Whenever I come to roost somewhere, I seek out the smallest room. I line it with books, and usually all of my Penguins were among those books. And this is the first time where I've made an actual wall out of them, and I spend so much time at that wall. Oh my. And we have seen a wide variety. Oh, what's the matter? You want another shot at your fans? Is that what you want? Oh, you're such a pretty little girl. You are. You're so pretty. For those of you who are new to the channel, this is my miniature schnauzer, Frida, who has been a part of this channel from the very beginning. Haven't you, baby? I filmed a ShakeTube video, a Shakespeare video, the day after I met her, the day after I made her acquaintance. And she's just grown up on camera, and she never leaves me. She never leaves my side. It's not quite in the same way. I once, also on this channel, had a fat, brain-damaged basset hound named Lucy. And Lucy also didn't like to be very far away from me at all, ever. But as she got older, very much older, white-faced, blind, deaf, she was content just to be where she was. She wouldn't do what she'd done for her whole life and seek me out. Frida's not at that point yet. Maybe she will come to be at that point in 10 or 15 years. But right now, she likes to be near me. She doesn't make any demonstration out of it. Lucy could actually be quite lovey-dovey, and her sister Malin was very, very affectionate. But Frida's not exactly that way. You're never in any doubt that she's a friendly dog and that she also likes you personally. But the mainly demonstrative way that she shows her affection is simply to be around me all the time. But anyway. I was mentioning that my love of these Penguins and the fact that I return to them more often than not, a lot of times with this little dog in the crook of my arm, just wandering that shelf, just standing there talking to the books. It's amazing to me. It continues to be amazing to me after years and years and years of doing this. I again, for those of you who are new to the channel, I am a professional reviewer. I review books for a living. I just noticed this morning, I don't usually seek these things out, but I just noticed this morning that I am blurred by name in a healthy number of paperbacks coming out this autumn. So let's hope the autumn book season goes according to plan. But I have noticed the amazing amount of intersections between that wall of books and whatever I happen to be reviewing. And I know that that's me. I'm reading those books into everything else that I encounter, because in a large sense, I don't want to make it too melodramatic, but in a large sense, those books gave me my reading vocabulary. They gave me my ability to read. It's, I suppose, unavoidable that I would just mentally touchstone to them, no matter what it is that I'm reading. And the variety is infinite, of course. I think we've seen that already on your Daily Penguin, and we will see more. This series is going to barrel on. The variety is infinite. We have seen whole runs of an author. We've seen extremely intellectual authors. We've seen the Enneads of Plotinus, for God's sake. We've seen all kinds of things like that. And it was inevitable that in the course of our Penguin Classic waddle, we would encounter from time to time things that, although they are canonized as classics, are nevertheless fairly dumb. fairly shallow. And today we have a perfect example of that. Your penguin for today is the Pillow Book of Sei Shonagon. Who that name probably doesn't belong to the author any more than, strictly speaking, does the name of her illustrious colleague, her illustrious contemporary. She wrote 1,000 years ago at a Japanese court, and we don't know how long she stayed at that court, or whether or not what her duties were there, or how often she was there. But she kept a pillow book, a jotting book, sort of like a non-literary commonplace book, in which she jotted down scenes, vignettes, spare thoughts, that sort of thing. And she did it at the same time that she did she had a flourishing literary career aside from that. But the only thing we remember this author for is this book. And she did it at the same time that Murasaki Shikibu was writing Tale of Genji at the same court, at the same time. Lady Murasaki did not have the highest esteem for Sei Shonagon, thought she was both pretentious and dumb. And it feels a little ungallant to say it, but that impression is actually borne out in her literary masterpiece, which is a literary masterpiece by accident, but still indispensable. This is still indispensable. It's like nothing. It's like no other 1,000-year-old work that you will ever read, to put it mildly. It's not like anything else that you will ever read. For it to find something like this in the canon of literature, in this case not the Western canon, but a rare foray into the Eastern canon. There's plenty of Eastern stuff. I don't know where it all is. Part of the thing that I'm enjoying about this Daily Penguin is that it's helping me to organize my shelves, but we will get to them. But you will encounter almost nothing like this anywhere. This is translated by Ivan Morris, who dedicates it to Ronald Keane, who is a poobah of all things Japan. And the translation is very good, but this is not a demanding work to translate. This is the jottings of a self-impressed nincompoop. So, and I want to read you a couple of those to give you a sense of what I mean. One of them is things that fall from the sky. And here you're expecting a graceful haiku or a gorgeous Taoist essay, and no, it's just things that fall from the sky. Snow, hail. I do not like sleet, but when it is mixed with pure white snow, it is very pretty. Snow looks wonderful when it has fallen on the roof of a cypress bark. When snow begins to melt a little, or when only a small amount has fallen, it enters into all the cracks between the bricks, so that the roof is black in some places, pure white in others. Most attractive. I like drizzle and hail when they come down on a shingle roof. I also like frost on a shingle roof or in a garden. That's it. That's all. No deeper penetrating insights here. No essays by lamplight. No, nothing like that. Just that. Or what about, there's another entry here, clouds. I love white, purple, and black clouds, the rain clouds when they are driven by the wind. It is charming at dawn to see the dark clouds gradually turn white. I believe this has been described in a Chinese poem that says something about, quote, the tints that leave at dawn. It is moving to see a thin wisp of cloud across a very bright moon. Yep, sure is. Who knew you had to do so little to get in the canon? Here, let's move on. I want to read you one more thing, and then I'll wrap this up, because this doesn't have to be long. The Pillow Book does not have to detain us long. This is under the heading Squalid Things. And although some of the observational blocks in this book might lead you to think this is a whimsical and maybe even a little sensitive person, quite a few of them betray that Lady Murasaki's characterization of Sei Shonagon was probably right. In fact, may have been a little on the generous side. In other words, as you'll see in this segment, and I could read you 100 segments like it, it's tough to read the Pillow Book without coming away with the sensation that the author was an a-hole. But let me show you just a bit here. This is called Squalid Things. Number one, the back of a piece of embroidery. Number two, the inside of a cat's ear. Number 3, a swarm of mice who still have no fur when they come wriggling out of their nest. Number 4, the seams of a fur robe that has not been lined. Number 5, darkness in a place that does not give the impression of being very clean. Number 6, a rather unattractive woman who looks after a large brood of children. This is squalid. And finally, a woman who falls ill and remains unwell for a long time. Like, whatever. See, that is squalid, for a woman to fall ill and remain unwell for a long time. In the mind of her lover, who is not particularly devoted to her, she must appear rather squalid. Okay, all right, so, Mean Girls, Hay Court style. There are segments in here that literary historians just in general, have been eternally grateful for it, because they record minutiae that the historians of the time and this time seldom bother to record. That is one of the only ways in which the 21st century is going to represent itself well to future historians. One of the only ways. We're losing so much. We're losing collected letters. We're losing collected telegrams. We're losing the formal idea of an essay. 100 books called essays have been printed in 2020 alone. They are all stand-up comedy scripts. They aren't essays at all. And they show no awareness of that fact. They show no awareness that there is anything else called an essay. And that's deadly. If they were done sort of tongue-in-cheek, eye cast over the shoulder towards genuine essays, that'd be one thing, but they aren't. They are teaching a whole generation of readers who will teach the next generation of readers that that's what an essay is. A barely dressed up aphorism. These things are in books called essays. But the one way that the 21st century represents itself well is minutia, because we have social media, and social media is the chronicle of minutia. It might dress itself up otherwise. It might have breaking news and headlines and trends. It might have, I know plenty of people who get their news from social media. That's where they go. They don't look at newspapers. They don't look at news sites. They go just to social media to get their news. But for the most part, social media is an incredible compendium of trivia. Anybody else feel a little dizzy after they burp? or look at this thing that I'm filming right now out my window. Looks really strange. It's a cloud or a bird. But it doesn't matter because you have that record at enormous, mind-boggling extent everywhere. Mind-boggling extent. There are Twitter and Instagram feeds there's an Instagram feed, or at least there was, that was entirely devoted to the keeper of the Instagram feed literally filming paint dry. or day by day extremely detailed photos of mold growing. So future generations, later ages historians who want, for instance, to document this is in fact the most important period in American history. Right now. What this country is right now in this country, this is the most important period in American history. It's going to have a swarm of historians who won't be American, but who will still be studying this time in exhaustive detail. And a large part of the running commentary on this period happened on social media, and that will be there. And this book, The Pillow Book, is the closest we're ever going to come to that kind of thing from 1,000 years ago. So historians, social commentators, that sort of thing have flocked to this book for those longer passages. But even the longer passages where, say, Shonagon attempts to write a little more are incredibly sordid and mean-spirited. She routinely watches cruelty done to others, either servants or people lower on the social ladder, or animals, especially animals. Animals all the time. Dogs do not fare well in this book. Old people, children. She routinely watches cruelty of the type that gave pain to, for instance, her exact coeval, Lady Murasaki. It's not like we're being anachronistic. It's not like we're judging her by our standards. She routinely records in this book things that she thought were titillating that are horrifying, and that her exact contemporary at the exact same court at the exact same time recorded with dismay and often tried to stop. So the longer bits are, I agree completely, they are historically fascinating. You wouldn't want this book not to exist, but don't expect to like the author. When she's at her chattiest and her most airheaded, you might be tempted to, but she will quickly disabuse you of that every single time. So that is your Penguin for today. I have never sought out a trade paperback of this. As you might be able to tell, I have taken down the Pillow Book many times, many times. Something slightly addictive about Sage Shonagon's company, even though it's unsavory. But I've never sought out a trade paperback of this. I haven't done my due diligence. I'm just not doing my due diligence for the Daily Penguin. It would make it feel like too much of an academic chore to build a bibliography or check on the provenance or whatnot. So I don't know if Penguin still publishes this, and I'm sure if they do, it's a nice, pretty trade paperback. I've never felt the urge to go and replace this volume, and I've never felt the urge to read this in any other translation. This is the only translation I've ever read it in. I get the point. I get the point quite well. So your Penguin for today is a recommend. You will never read an ancient work like this anywhere. So you might as well, and you might like it. It is very enjoyable to read, and utterly fascinating, of course. In addition to that, for all sorts of metatextual reasons. But it's a recommend. But this is not Horace. This is not Chaucer. You are not going to love this author, I don't think. If you read this book, and you do, I'd love to hear it. But anyway, that's your Penguin for today. It was a silly book. It's a silly book that managed to live for 1,000 years. So who knows? I don't think there are many silly books on this wall, so we probably won't have another one tomorrow, but we shall see. I'm going to wrap this up, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.